Item 1, to sign the minutes of the previous meeting. Is you or we shall sign them straight record, please, members?
Agreed.
Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Councillors Bob Hatchett, Nigel Carr, Ian Robertson, David Smith, Malcolm Longley.
Right, we've got 2 more councillors that are stuck in the Watford traffic queue. If you don't, the Long Buckby Road's closed. It took me half an hour to get from Watford to the A5. So it's, they'll be here as soon as they get in. Right, members' interest. Disclose. Talk of the devil. In fact, she's not the devil. She's one of 2 members.
I'm terribly sorry.
That's all right. We realise the problem. Come in, sign in and sit down. We've just got to members' interests. Colin, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As a portfolio holder for regeneration, I have to declare an interest in the first application, 0171. However, I'm happy to listen to the debate, keep an open mind, and pass my judgment accordingly, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Any other disposable interests? Right, party whipping arrangements.
None.
Members of the public, that means we don't get together on political sides or any sides beforehand to judge how we're going to vote. There are no planning applications withdrawn or delegated. A few bits of housekeeping. I'm sure you've heard it all before. If the alarm rings, the fire alarm, it's not a test, so please go out orderly the way you came in. Please switch your mobile devices to silent, as it costs you £5 if one rings, including us, to the Chairman's charity. The proceedings are being recorded. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. After that, you'll hear a tone and be asked to wind up. And that is the only opportunity for you to speak. So I'm sure you're not going to interrupt the rest of the debate. I'm sure the rest doesn't apply, but no clapping, hissing, cheering, booing, standing, waving your arms. But you won't do that. You'll see officers talking during the debate, probably while you're talking. That's so that they get an answer to what you're saying, the points you're making. Update on performance, well, we get that via email anyway.
I'm expecting to open that tomorrow, Chairman.
Okay? Thank you. We go straight then to the first application, which is in Abbey North, and it's 0171. So it's you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members. Can I introduce the application for Heartlands Plot 2. The application site lies in the north part of Heartlands Business Park. It's a planned business estate, as you well know, in the north part of Daventry town. The application site is now developed a plot, and it is located around the central landscape feature lake. Vehicular access to the site is from an existing stub, which is located to the west on Union Drive. The site is bounded to the southwest by Union Drive, Farnborough Drive to the southeast, the former railway line to the northeast, and a development plot to the north. The proposal is for a 2-storey B2 industrial building. It will have a ridge height of 11 metres at the highest point, eaves height of 8 metres, and total footprint of 1,760 square metres. As part of the development, there's a proposal for 37 parking spaces on site, which will front onto Newham Drive, and the southwest and southeast boundaries will have a landscape strip between 4 up to 8 metres wide. To the northeast and northwest, there will be a 2.6 metre high green paladin fence. This is one of the mesh fences that has visibility between the fence and not a palisade fence. The roof of the proposal is a shallow pitch. The walls will be white, grey, black panels, and there will be 2 architectural features which will stand terms of the application, the proposal has received two objections. One from Daventry County Council Highways. The objections relate to the requirement for a footpath to run around the southwest and southeast boundary of the site, and the concerns that the applicant hasn't demonstrated that HGVs can turn around safely in the loading yard and access site should there be other HGVs coming to site. The report details the planning policies relevant to this proposal in detail, and covers national planning policy, particularly sections 1, 4 and 7, and local planning guidance and planning policy, including policy C5 of the West Northampton Joint Strategy, and some of the local planning policies, EN42, which relates to design, GN2, which also relates to design. Now, in terms of the proposal, the principle of development the site for B2 industrial use and light industrial, that's established.
Sorry. Can I ask you to speak up a bit?
Yeah, sure. The principle of developing the site for B2 use, is that better?
Yes.
Is firmly established. This is an existing industrial park, and so there are no policy concerns in terms of principle. So this is an appropriate location for light industrial development. The layout of the site is informed by the Heartlands Development Brief. It's a document approximately 10 years old, which was developed as guidance. It's not adopted, but as guidance, which identifies the general character of the Heartlands Business Park. This character is derived from the central landscape feature, which is the lake, large landscape buffers and planted vegetation, as some of these photos show. This proposal will be close to Farnborough Drive, approximately 6 to 8 metres to Farnborough Drive. That's uncommon within the wider Heartlands Business Park. So therefore, because of the scale of the proposal, the 8 metre eaves height, the 11 metre ridge height, it will have quite an imposing, quite a dominant presence on Farnborough Drive. As you can see from this photo, the land drops close to the southeast corner of the site, and also the disused railway line. That's the area where the build's going to be most prominent. This area acts as a gateway from Middlemore. Now, at present, this road is only single access, but potentially could be widened to dual access so that you can go from Middlemore to Heartlands Business Estate, or from Heartlands back to Middlemore. It therefore could be a key feature within this transition zone between industrial estate and residential area. Now, in terms of highway safety, the proposal conflicts with GN2 of the local plan, Daventry local plan, because it's not been demonstrated that HGVs can turn around on site and access site safely. There's also the concern with the footpath not being provided. Policy C5, the West Northamptonshire Joint Course Strategy, requires that connections should be, footpath connections should be strengthened by new development. This particular proposal wouldn't achieve that. In terms of the actual design and character of the building, it's an industrial building, it's appropriately designed. The issue here is that it's not located in the centre of the site, as is common with the other surrounding units. Landscape has been proposed to try and mitigate the impact with a variety of trees that will give some visual break along this southeast elevation along Farnborough Drive. However, there still remains this issue that the building isn't set back from the highway far enough, resulting in a dominant impact, and therefore it being contrary to local planning policy, specifically in respect of design. Therefore, the proposal was recommended for refusal based on 3 particular reasons. Its location in the site, creating this dominant feature when viewed from Farnborough Drive. The lack of evidence to show that the tenement area will not have a detrimental impact on highway safety, forcing HGVs to potentially wait on Union Drive. And the last thing, the lack of connectivity that it brings to wider industrial estate by not providing this footpath along the southwest and southeast boundaries of the site. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. I should have introduced introduce Alan to you. You probably don't know Alan Davies, or very few of you do. He's one of their planning officers, and I'm sure you'll see him again, and we'll ask him to speak even louder next time. I did mention it at Chairman's briefing, actually.
Could we afford a name tag for him as well?
No, we couldn't afford that. Sorry about that. Right, we've got a speaker on it, Mr. Underhill. You have 3 minutes, sir.
When that hasn't started, has it?
Sorry?
3 minutes hasn't started yet, has it?
I can't hear you,
No,
sorry.
not yet. But it will do as soon as it's done.
Yeah.
Can you put the other screen up first? The one with the CGI.
Okay.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to make representations with regard to the application on behalf of the applicant in its role as enabler for economic development. There are numerous national and local policies that support economic development. The Joint Core Strategy also places emphasis on supporting the development of existing sites. The recently published Joint Authorities Monitoring Report relating to the Joint Core Strategy states that over the 5-year monitoring period to date, there has been an under-provision of employment buildings in West Northamptonshire. The MPPF places a strong emphasis on delivering sustainable development that delivers economic development. Paragraph 17 describes the 12 core planning principles that should underpin decision making. One of these is to proactively drive and support sustainable economic development. The proposal is for a modern business building, the bulk of which would be pre-let to an existing local business, Rothing Basel, to enable its growth. It will contain a substantial office area with the remaining part used for demonstration and storage. The building would be the sales, service and training centre for customers in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. The company currently employs 28 people in Daventry, but intends to consolidate other jobs into Daventry and will have space for expansion in the future. It's estimated that 40 jobs would be based at the site, which would be worth £1.48 million per year to the economy. Before assistance was offered by the council to Rothing Basel, it was considering moving out of Daventry at the end of its current lease, as no suitable premises was available. This reflects the overall situation in Daventry, where there is very little business space available, the council's own stock being around 99% occupied. The building is also designed to achieve a secondary but important purpose, helping to protect the Middlemore and Drayton Park areas from noise from existing operations on heartlands. If the location of the building were to be moved 4 metres north, as the case officer wishes, its noise blocking effect would be less effective, as the gap through which the noise would travel would be increased. The first suggested reason for refusal relates to the location of the building. Despite the objection, the proposed building would be located between 6.8 metres to 8 metres from Farnborough Drive and significantly further away from Newnham Drive. This allows for substantial landscape planting, as can be seen from the CGIs at the bottom of the page. It's also been produced, the photos show areas of Harlan's industrial estate where the space between the road and the buildings, showing the scale of the buildings, is less than what we are proposing on ours. So there are existing buildings which already do not meet the design guide suggested, and there's also less landscaping shown in between that buffer than we are intending to provide. The second proposed reason for refusal is about HGV movements. If you could put the other slide up, please. The site makes ample off-highway provision for HGVs, including the private spur road. The areas shown blue are HGV waiting spaces which are off the highway, not on the highway. They are within the development. The third proposed reason relates to the alleged lack of a convenient footpath to the building for employees to walk to and from Middlemore. There are existing footpaths that can be used, but notwithstanding this, the applicant can easily provide a gate to the southeast corner of the site to connect to the existing footpath on Farnborough Drive and a path around the building as shown in red on the plan. This has been offered, but does not seem to have been noted in the report. The committee could easily secure this path through a pre-occupation condition. I therefore ask the committee to approve the plans.
Thank you, sir. Right, local members, there's only one here, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I accept that this is an industrial site, I accept all that Mr. Underhill has said about the need for economic development, but I'm with the officers on this one. We talk about wanting Daventry to be, a nice place to live and work. And I feel that unless we are creating decent, attractive places to work, then our chances of attracting decent employers that are going to contribute to the town is just not going to happen. I just feel that looking at the whole environment is important, even if this is effectively an industrial estate. That's no reason why. I mean, if we can, the previous photo just shows the general character that has been achieved in the Heartlands. Now, I mean, I wasn't around this council when the Heartlands was conceived and planned, but I do think that whoever was responsible for it deserves congratulations. It's a place of work, but it is a nice place of work. And I just think that that this particular development, being so close to the road, with so little space for it really to fit in with the general characteristic of the estate, I just think it would be a mistake to let that go ahead. I think that the footpath issue is an important one, because people are going to walk from Middlemore through to places of work in the Heartlands and beyond. I worry too that the corner of this building is not going to be terribly far from the new retirement home that we anticipate will be built effectively diagonally across from it. I don't know if the officers can tell us, but I would expect that it wouldn't be a matter of much more than about 100 yards between the two. And I just feel that, given that we have gone, that we are anticipating having a retirement home in what is a very attractive area because of its, shrubbery, because of the, the situation with the, with the reservoir and so on. I just feel that the word overbearing appears somewhere in the report, and that's just how it would seem to me. I therefore feel that that in the interests of getting economic development, we have got to protect the nature and the character of the Heartlands estate. Which is why I cannot support this. I'm sure that Mr. Underhill didn't really mean to imply that the company would move from Daventry if this development were not, if this application were not agreed. But that sort of implied threat, I'm afraid that doesn't endear me to the application in any way. However, I would like to move that we accept the officer's recommendation on this.
Thank you. Do you have a second? I will second him as chairman, which I can do. So I'll second the proposal. I don't wish to speak on it either. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. When I first saw this, I thought, it's another element of employment for Daventry, which we should do welcome. But Councillor Rich is right about the Heartlands estate. It's actually an extraordinarily attractive industrial estate. And I think Daventry should be really, really proud of it. And I think it's actually a pleasant place to walk. And in fact, I walk down there myself because it is so pleasant. The lake is nice to walk around. It's open and it's free. It does get busy up there these days, though, and there are lorries parked around. I know that's a parking space up there, and it does get busier than that. Pathways around there are important. This access road is frequently used now. It's virtually an open road now, even though it's got no entry signs on it. It is used as an access point. Cars whip up and down there. It's a downhill section. It's the end of the railway line, which is one of the most important walkways in Daventry. The railway line finishes just beyond that, on the other side along that track. And then the railway line follows over, although it's not paved, it's still walkable, and there is another walkway at the side of the houses there, and there's another walkway down the other side to the reservoir. So it's an area of a lot of pathways, and I think the lack of the pathway there, enclosing it, is detrimental to the site, and I think I agree with the previous speaker and the chair on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You'd like to clarify
If I
something?
can just clarify, you mentioned the road, which is a single lane road, and despite the signage that currently says no access, there is actually no road order on there
I know.
that says
That's what I
it's
said.
only one way. So it regularly comes up at roads drawn catching groups. The police would like that signage removing because there is no road order making
It
that.
says it's closed both ways, and that's what I'm saying.
Which it isn't. It is actually a single carriageway. There is no reason why anybody can't drive either direction.
I know.
I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There's
It is used constantly, and it
and
is
there's no
busy.
reason for people not to, despite
Yeah, no, I'm saying.
the
And it is
signage.
used constantly, not busy. It's not. It may be used in the future, as was sort of intimated earlier. It is used constantly.
And just one other point that might be worth clarifying, the environmental health noise assessment was done in relation to the site on the proposal for members only. There's not been any assessment done if the building were moved. There's not been any other alternative proposals, so they're the only other points that have come up.
Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll say no, I don't agree with the officers. A lot of the points I was going to bring up are actually in the late representations, so I'll go through one or two, but just talk on just small piece. In connection with the paths, it doesn't need one along in front of the building, as has already been said. There's enough paths there. There's the path from Middlemore. There's drop curbs so they can cross the road, walk along. Another drop curb so they can take them straight into these premises themselves. It might take them another half a dozen steps, but it'd be a lot better and it'd save a lot of money rather than put a path down the way along the front of the building. The planting, if there's no path there, it's going to be a lot more room for planting. Down the side it says there's 3 metres. Lost it now, sorry. Somewhere it says down the side, even if there's a grass verge, there will still be 3 metres for planting, and I would have thought 3 metres was plenty to put a barrow in there in front of the fence itself. Sorry, I've lost track now. The site itself, yeah, HGVs do park round the roads. Even this morning I went round and there was 4. But the roads are wide enough because as I went past them, I looked in my mirror because there'd been a lorry coming towards me. So I saw him in my mirror go past the other lorries and he passed very easily. So there's room for HGVs to pass if they need to on the ordinary roads. The same on the site. They say that there's no paperwork in connection with reversing, etc. It's going back a few years, but my husband was an HGV driver and he's looked at the site and he's looked at that and he said there's no problem there with lorries reversing and changing. There's plenty of room there. Plus the fact, on the on the noise assessment paperwork in 6.2, where it's on about some noise, it says with this firm that is interested in coming into this building, they will have 2 or 3 vans a day and they might have 1 HG delivery a week, and that's it. According to the transport statement, it says the largest delivery stroke service vehicle at the site will most likely be a refuge vehicle. This is another opportunity for us to get a firm into Daventry, one that will perhaps want to stay for years. It says there's only 2 unloading sites there. Well, perhaps this firm will stay for a long time. If they don't, you won't get a firm into there that has lots of HGV lorries because there's only 2 unloading bays. So if this firm comes and then goes, you will most likely get another firm that works along the same lines. And I don't see any reason to turn it down when we've got a chance of having somebody in who wants this building.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Eden. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. I've already declared the fact that I'm the portfolio holder. However, I have to pick up on page 18, Chairman. Page 18, the first 2 paragraphs are written by somebody in highways. I wonder who that could be. There also remains the unknown factor where the site opposite this one will form access. It's clear from the vehicle tracking that the whole stub is taken by HGV manoeuvre. That is an assumption. That is not a planning reason. In the first paragraph, the highways remain concerned that 2 HGV loading bays do not work in conjunction with each other, whilst the applicant states that only one will be used at a time, split into 2 separate business interests. Again, not relevant to this site, so they shouldn't be there. The photos that the officer put on the screen regarding other premise on that estate have almost identical landscaping to what is proposed for this site. So, and the landscaping is, it's not policy, it's there. We talked about planting, there is adequate planting, you know, the landscape is no different. Pathways, my colleague at the back said, you know, highlighted the numerous pathways there. It's a low noise business. It's on a commercial estate. The road that people are referring to as a single track road was originally, and I'm sure the officer will agree, was originally a bus only lane, which was then changed purely and simply, and sometime or other will become a 2-lane road. So that doesn't apply. One of the things that I've picked up on, and particularly when Wetherspoons built their factory, was the emission of noise from the Wetherspoons unit. Ostensibly, the trade words, they are box shifting companies, and they have heavy movement both day and night from HGVs. The noise emitting from the Wetherspoons site was purely and simply because it wasn't, they need the chilling fans. If this building goes ahead and is put where it is, it will act as a deflector for the noise emitting from that site. So that is a plus. But at the end of the day, the building, the landscaping is no different to many, many other buildings on that estate. And whilst I have empathy for our landscape officer and other members, I have no doubt that this will be a tremendous advantage to Daventry. 40 employees, 37 parking spaces, 2 disabled bays, 2 electric and cycles. I can't say any more. we are going to, or we're being asked to refuse it on purely landscaping grounds, because the highways shouldn't even be there in the first place. This is not a company that uses HGVs.
Thank you,
So,
James.
thank you, Chairman.
They're commenting on the use, not the company.
Well,
And the use can be anybody.
Yeah.
So, the use can be anybody, not a particular company. You'd want to comment on something?
Yeah, just want to clarify a few things. The location plan here, as you can see on the screen, approximately where the cursor is, that's the proposed location for the retirement home, just so you're aware. In terms of the highways response with the manoeuvring on site of HGVs, the exact wording is that where is it? The concern is that the two bays don't work in conjunction with each other. Now, the proposal wouldn't restrict the number of vehicles. The fact that we know the operator of the unit doesn't mean that in some future date the building couldn't be split or a different company could come forward and operate from this site. So the danger would be that in the future you would have this loading bay scenario where there's not sufficient manoeuvring space on site, or it hasn't been demonstrated that there's sufficient manoeuvring space on site for two vehicles to pass in a safe manner. The other danger is that by these loading bays not having the full range of manoeuvring ability in front of them, vehicles could back up onto the highway. I appreciate vehicles are parked on the highway, and the danger is that vehicles will back up onto this access stuff on the western point of the site. So that would be where the danger arises, and that's what the Northampton County Council Highways refer to in their response. In terms of landscaping, with the southeast boundary along Farnborough Drive, the building is set back from the curb, not the edge of the highway. There's no verge here, there's no footpath here. So it's proposed to set the building back by between 6 and 8 metres. It varies. In general, the larger units on Heartlands Business Park are set back by at least 10 metres. So this is this additional 4 metres that Mr. Underhill has referred to. My suggestion to the applicant, part of the application, would be if the building was set further to the northwest by approximately 4 metres, you'd be able to achieve a similar landscape buffer that is apparent on many of the large business units within Heartlands Business Estate. The last little thing is the noise impact assessment. The noise impact assessment has been carried out on this proposed layout only. It demonstrates that it would mitigate against noise impact of both the unit, and it would help to act as a noise attenuation barrier for other units on the estate. Changing the layout may well still achieve that exact same goal. We haven't had that assessed, and we haven't got the information at hand which demonstrates that it does or doesn't act as a noise attenuation barrier in a slightly different location on site. So,
with the greatest respect.
Hang on, Colin.
If I can
Let
just,
the officer finish
if I can
first.
just add, members will recall that there is a large noise attenuation bund alongside, I think it's this, is that just?
That's right,
That's
yeah.
along here already, because of, so when this application came before us several years ago, there's a huge bund with a fence on top, and you've seen a photograph of that on the pictures. So along this edge here, there is already a noise attenuation bund, and then obviously this building's been designed to add to that noise attenuation. So there is a buffer between the industrial estate with 24-hour operation and the housing estate that's very close by.
So that is a plus.
that's all.
But with the greatest respect to you, sir, I can't look as a member of the planning committee to the future. I can only act on what is before me. We have been told repeatedly during these sessions that, oh, if we knock that down and they put something else up, something else could go there in the future. we are repeatedly told we cannot look to the future. I cannot look to who is going to occupy another building. I disagree with you totally about HGV turning. I would ask the chairman if he could request that the highways officer could perhaps come along to one of our training meetings. The highways officer, I believe, is Verity Chivers, and you know, there have been matters, and I'm not speaking out of turn, Chairman, you know that I have various bones of contention with highways decisions, some of which in Daventry have been made and are possibly being overturned. But I can't see any logical reason for this to be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. The only difference is this is being given a class business use, and that class business use is there until it gets altered by a planning committee for whoever occupies it. So that's whoever occupies it and for whatever they do within that class business use.
So it would have to come back to committee?
No, it wouldn't, as long as it was within that use. Councillor Irving-Smith.
Yes, I feel that because it's the applicant is the DC, that the refusal didn't come lightly to the officer. I do think that when the building is there, we can control who will be in the building, what it would be a B2, and the number of HGV or whatever. We always say that highway, when highway says something we like, we agree with highway. When highway says something we dislike, we try to tell that highway is wrong. The officer at highway just do her job. For me, looking at that application, the main crux of the matter is the position of the building, and it should be moved another 6 meters, if I understand correctly. So I do think that there is a way that looking at the building, it doesn't seem it's enough that we could accommodate the building with a good architect a bit farther, and I do think it would be quite close to the building on the other side of the road. So I think when you have a successful industrial estate that is close to housing but doesn't over-plan, and I can say that because I live near Desborough, and I promise you they have put a huge estate very close to new building, and it's absolutely horrid, and people always complain. So I think the officer in this case of our planning officer is right, and I will vote with officer recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the size of that plot, it just seems to me a ridiculous argument we're having. There's enough space to build another unit there.
Yeah.
So why they designed it in a way that creates a friction with our own officers, I don't understand. It can't be outside the wit of a good architect who designed a building that does fit in with the Heartlands guidelines. And for that reason alone, I will support the officer's advice.
Thank you. Councillor Organ.
Yes, it's on a similar vein really. I'm wondering, when we are constructing things, we are the developer, do we still have access to talk with the planning department to help us formulate our plans, etc.?
We do indeed.
Right, it's exactly the same, because we often hear developers communicating with the planning officer to try and make sure that things are done in a certain way. That's the same process when we're building our own buildings.
I probably shouldn't say it, but looking from the outside inwards, I personally don't think there was too much talk between the two parts of the council. I have to say that. I can say that, and the sticks will probably throw at me, but that's what I believe.
Okay,
I agree with you, Chair.
I'm not too sure on how we, but I think that might be in the future a good way to go forward is to communicate with each other to help these processes through. And I think for many things being said, I will be going along with officers on this.
And if ever I hear a member of the public say, well, it's one of your own applications, you would say yes to it, wouldn't you? I would refer them to this application, where a lot of members are not saying yes. Right, I've got no more list of... yes, sir.
Just a brief comment, Chairman. I'm concerned. I listen with interest to all that my colleagues say, but I'm concerned that if we follow officers' advice, which we're normally quite careful in considering and doing, what signal does it send when we're trying to sell Daventry as being open for business if we're refusing what looks like a simple business application that should be accommodated?
Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add to that is, as the report states, that the principle of development here is acceptable. It's the details that matter, and the planning system, both the national planning policy framework and our own plans, seek to achieve the best possible
Yes, I accept
design. And that's the issue in this case. It's the design issues and the highways concerns. It's not the principle. We're supportive of having an industrial unit in this location. It's just got to be the right industrial unit with the right design and the right layout for that particular site.
Thank you.
I'm certain Councillor Auger hit it on the head. Had one part of the council talk to the other part of the council. There was nothing wrong with the principle of it. It could have been decided and it could have been put in a different place in this committee. The whole committee would have been supporting it, I'm certain. Anyway, we have a proposal that, which has been seconded, that the application be approved, refused, sorry, as per the officer's advice, refused. All those in favour, please show. Right, those against? No, it's 5. There's a 4. Yeah. 4. Right, the application is refused.
Yeah. We are where we are.
And that application is in Whedon.
Sorry, Chair, before we move on, just picking up on Councillor Augers, should we not be making some sort of point that different departments within our own council should or have to talk to each other rather than may or could?
Through
I
you,
think
Chairman, that's not the role of the local planning authority, and that's what we're here
That's correct.
today.
We don't have any evidence that they haven't.
We don't, but I'm pretty sure that the way that certainly myself and other members have made comments, that the message will get back. Let's put it like that.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay? Right, next application is in Whedon, 0349.
Thanks, Chairman. This application's back before committee. It was considered at the last committee meeting where the members resolved to approve the application. It's back before committee for one reason only, and that is in respect of the boundary or garden fence that was incorrectly shown on the previous submission. The application and other, in every other detail, in every other aspect, remains the same. I don't propose to set out the planning merits for or against it. Those are set out in the report, Chairman. What I would say is that the development control manager has been to the site, has spoken to the neighbouring property, and is satisfied that the new drawing accurately shows the garden fence in respect to the proposed development. And accordingly, we're asking that members reaffirm the resolution as previously agreed at the previous planning committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Aaron. We have 2 speakers. Mrs. Butlin, who's against the application?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Actually, I'm speaking on behalf of my friend Heather Smith. She was at the previous meeting to represent this application. As it happened, I came along with her to give her some moral support on that basis. It's not a very nice thing to have to come and talk against an application. So actually, one of the things she wanted to make clear was the fact that she'd had no notification by a letter from Daventry District Council to say that there was a revised application put in for this. She's not received any letter whatsoever, other than one that said it was going to committee just a couple of days ago. She actually found out by mistake or by accident because the parish council had been asked to make comments on this one, so that's the only reason that she was made aware that there was a revision to this application, which strikes me, as she said, of misadministration on the behalf of the planning office. So she wanted me to reiterate a few things here. So the plans actually show a new boundary line. Boundary lines are only really done through land registry, and it's only a nominal line. The site hasn't changed. The site is still going to be overbearing. Even when you talk about permitted development rights, that house has already had all of its quota, and that was mentioned last time round. So it needs to have a planning application. And members, I think if you were to really actually go and do a site visit here, you would just see how close this proposed building will be overbearing on the neighbouring property. The closest corner to the diagonal of the fence line will be about 80 centimetres away from that boundary. This isn't really very clear on these drawings because they're not very detailed, but that's fact. And the garden next door is 1 metre lower than that neighbouring property. So ultimately you have an overbearing, overpowering application for an extension to an already expanded house that is going to be extremely overbearing and very, very dark. It also still has windows on the side, there's no need for those, and you would also bring into question whether or not they would then put a patio in there to come out of the back door, which would probably be at least, I don't know, 30 centimetres up, or you can't step down to it or they're going to break their neck. So, you know, if they build a patio, that's going to be at least 1 metre plus another 30 or 40 centimetres above next door's garden, which equally isn't appropriate. They will not be able to have any privacy within their garden whatsoever. Not only that, you know, the fact that I'm actually having to come and represent Heather again is tantamount to, you know, why is the application in front of the planning committee again? Clearly there was errors in the officer's report at the last planning committee meeting. Measurements were being done on the fly then, and I don't really think that that's particularly appropriate. Therefore, I've really asked the members to think about A, doing a site visit, and B, certainly ensuring that there's plenty of conditions on this, such that if it is allowed to go ahead, it's certainly not going to affect the neighbours.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mrs. Hogan, who's the applicant.
That's me. I would just like to say, yes, there was a mistake made with the measurements, and we didn't realise that when it came to planning. But when we got the telephone call, our architect did come out and re-measure it all and everything. We're quite happy to work with the neighbours at number 89. We've never not spoken to them about having an extension. In fact, the neighbours have been round on numerous occasions in the last 12 months to have a look to see what we want to do and see where we want to go. And there's never been any, you know, they have never wanted to reject our extension or anything like that. So if you let us have the extension, then we're quite happy to work with the neighbours and let them come round and step by step how the extension goes and where we're going with it, so they can see for themselves what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Thank you.
That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Local member that wishes to speak, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll keep this very brief. My attention was only drawn to this application because having campaigned frequently in Weedon, having lived in Weedon for most of my life, having been attending parish council meetings directly opposite this site, I know the location very well. And so when I saw a quota of 3.5 metres as the justification for the application meeting the requirements of the N42, I was extremely surprised. I knew from my local knowledge that there couldn't possibly be a distance of 3.5 metres as quoted in the initial report. I note with interest now that we're down to 80 centimetres rather than the original 3.5 metres quoted, but then there's also a second figure quoted in this new report of 1600 millimetres. I think before the committee would approve such an application, we need to have absolute certainty on the distances involved. If we're considering the potentially overbearing nature of an application, in terms of the proximity of the property, then surely this measurement becomes absolutely key to the decision. And actually I would concur with the neighbour's request for a site visit, physical measurements to be taken rather than estimates based on plans, and absolute certainty achieved before a decision is made.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Oakley.
Yes, can I have a clarification? At the last meeting, I asked if the applicant could build a wall at which level on her side, because what we have been told, you have 80 centimetres and whatever, how it would be built or not with that put aside the differential of level between the applicant and the neighbours. So if the applicant wants to put a wall, is the wall 2 metres from their high position, or is it 2 meters or 6 foot, sorry, or is it from the lower level? And when I have that, I will see if I go.
2 metres from their side, isn't it?
I didn't catch that, sorry.
Just the 2 metres from the lower side, or is it 2 metres from their side? 2 metres from the higher side?
Not the high side.
It's not the boundary.
Do you mean the height of the boundary wall?
No,
Yeah.
if the neighbours, if the applicant would like to build a wall,
Yeah, so if the
Or-
applicant
or
wants to
put-
build a wall, they could build a wall on their side of their property, up
At
to
that
2 metres
level.
in height, and that 2 metres would be taken from the highest part of their particular garden. So for example, if the garden dropped, it could be 2 metres at one end, and potentially up to 3 metres at another, depending how far, but at the point at which they have constructed that means of enclosure, it's up to 2 metres in height.
so with that information, I will propose that we go with officer advice, making sure that maybe the window is with offshore glasses, that will, which is already,
That's already
it's already done. That is the difference between the last application and this one.
Right,
So
do you
I
have,
say that we go with officer advice, thank you.
do you have a second then? Was that a hand, sir, or were you scratching your ear?
Okay.
It's like an auction this sometimes. Would you like to speak now?
Very briefly, I'd like to ask a question. Who owns the fence currently?
It's my friend.
Thank you.
No.
The council as a local planning authority is not an arbiter in boundary
No,
disputes.
I know that. I know that.
I think
But-
that's entirely matter between the two neighbours.
I have a thought in my head as to the fact that the fence is there doesn't mean that that's a fence.
Well, as I've emphasised to members, the proposal isn't changing. The proposed development for members is considering hasn't changed. The issue is with regard to a line drawn
Yes.
on the drawing. With regard to the comments made about communication with the neighbouring property, I mean, if you look at the late representations, I've checked the records. Our records show that letters were sent out to the neighbouring properties on the 13th of June, advising of the revised drawings, and certainly it must have been received by the Parish Council, because the Parish Council have responded, as I understand it. And further letters were sent out on the 20th of June, advising of the fact that the application was coming back before planning committee.
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
Was that information posted, Eamon?
Those were letters sent out on our system, the system we use for generating letters to advise people of all planning applications.
Thank you.
For you, Chairman, most parishes choose to get it by email, the vast majority. Most parish councils.
What about the applicant and the neighbours?
Those are letters sent out.
Letters were sent. Thank you. I come back to the comments that I made last time, Chairman. If we can look at the rear of the building, if I may, the photos. I got a sniff, that one. I almost got a sniff from the applicant regarding compromise. My comments originally were, if I look at that conservatory, it drops down from the building further up the hill, and consequently the next building, being the neighbour, then drops down again. But with the application, I was totally confused why the new extension, the roofing will go up underneath those windows, the bedroom windows. And to me, the aesthetics of that were just, you know, totally wrong. There they are. That in itself, you know, is overbearing. As I said, I almost got an inkling from the applicant that there was room for compromise if I was to make a suggestion that, although it not be a planning matter, that roof should follow almost the same lines as the existing conservatory at that height. And it's, you know, if there is compromise, then I would like the neighbours to get together and to resolve the matter. But for the new extension, there is no logical reason in my mind why that roof has to go up underneath the bedroom windows. Makes it totally more overbearing.
Through you, Chairman, the proposal before members is that roof.
Yeah.
But if the members did want to if the applicant did want to compromise on there, I'm sure that would require a new plan application.
Yeah, you have to deal with the application in front of you.
That's yours,
Yes,
Madam
I'm dealing with the application in front of me.
There you are.
Yes,
You're saying you'd like something different. Well,
no,
unfortunately, you have to go
I mentioned that the applicant, I felt, might compromise. I didn't want anything different in my mind. You know, I can't agree with the application. Exactly the same as I did the last time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paul. Anybody else? Yes,
Yeah,
Councillor
I'd
Evans.
just like to say I'm quite happy with it the way it is. If that's what they want, if that's what they put in for, and officers are happy with it, I'm okay.
Thank you. Councillor? Sorry, Councillor
Ritchie.
Your name, Councillor Ritchie. I do apologise, Councillor.
There was another hand. I wasn't
Yeah,
quite sure
you're
who you were
next,
referring to.
and then we go to Councillor Parker.
I just wanted to put on record that at the last meeting, I abstained on this application because having looked at all the diagrams and the photographs that have been put there, I just couldn't feel sufficiently confident in the picture that I built in my mind of what this was going to look like from the neighbour's garden. And I'm afraid that is still my position, that I feel that without a site visit, maybe others are more expert in, working from diagrams into a visualization of what is actually proposed. But in this case, I just don't feel sufficiently confident to come down one way or another. And I just say that just in case there are others in the committee who have got, similar concerns and feel that actually looking at this is the only way in which we could feel comfortable in taking a decision.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. The officer states the only difference is the garden fence is now shown accurately. The extension in the original report indicated a 3.5 metre gap to the boundary fence from the extension. This was amended on the planning night to 1.75 metres as the officer used the wrong scale. The revised report now indicates the gap from the extension to the fence is 0.8 metres. That's our third measurement. The officer states the hedge and fence restricts views to and from the proposed development, but it is the hedge that restricts the views as it is above the fence line on the applicant's side. So, no hedge, views would not be restricted, therefore there would be overlooking. The officer refers to the depth of the hedge, 0.8 metres, given a distance of 1.6 metres from the extension. The depth of the hedge is irrelevant. It is 0.8 metres from the boundary. The officer seems to put great emphasis on the hedge, which is on the next door's property. Reduce the hedge equals loss of privacy. So we're relying on the next door neighbour to keep the hedge at a certain height for not overlooking. Strange. The drop of 1 metre is critical to this application. The officer now accepts the extension will be 0.8 metres from the boundary. As I have stated before, if the properties are at the same level, I'll be taking perhaps a different view, but they are not, and therefore I do not support officer's advice, as it is contrary to EN 42C, GN 2A and Para 9 of the MPPF. If we look at late reps, the officer states, we did not directly notify district councillors of the revised drawing, but their comments previously made are set out in the report before committee. I'd like to know why they weren't actually notified. B, to reiterate, the proposed development before committee has not changed from the previous planning committee, which members judged to be acceptable on planning grounds. Yes, it has changed, the distances have changed. The planning committee made a decision based on 1.75 metres from the boundary. This has now come down to 0.8. So I'm baffled why the officer states that. And C, the planning committee previously agreed to impose a condition requiring side-facing high-level windows on the side elevation of the upscale glade. It would be unreasonable to impose conditions removing permitted development rights on the existing property. I presume by the existing property they do mean the existing property. And are there actually side windows on their existing property? And one other thing which was mentioned about the fence and when you build it from, which I think is 6 feet 2 metres, that is from the original land height. As you'll see, that land was actually built up to form that. So it wouldn't be, if I've read things right, but I'll be put right on that one, actually to the height of the applicant's side. So I think there is inconsistencies in these reports, and I fail to see how we can arrive at a safe decision unless we have a site visit, which is what I propose as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to answer any of those points?
Well, as
Or do you want to leave it?
I advised at the start, the application, the development, which is the single-storey extension, has not changed. What is before members, the only change is with respect to the boundary. The boundary line was incorrectly drawn, and that is that was the line which the officers correctly advised members verbally at the last committee and measured that distance from. The development control manager, in response to the concerns raised by the neighbouring property, personally visited the property and agreed that the boundary line, or the line that was referred to at committee, was incorrectly drawn, and invited revised drawings to properly demonstrate where the garden fence was. That drawing is now before members. The application has not changed in any other respect. The development control manager, who has 35 years of experience dealing with applications, has advised the neighbouring property, who expressed concerns with the application, that in his opinion there is no sustainable reasons for refusing the application. He is fully supportive of the recommendation before members tonight, and that recommendation is to ask you as members to reiterate the resolution that you gave last time. Nothing has changed in respect of what you're being asked to determine, which is a single-storey extension of the neighbouring property, which meets the council's own supplementary planning guidance on designing house extensions, and is acceptable in planning terms. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. That's
Chairman,
right.
I made a proposal, right? I didn't have a second.
Yeah, it's been seconded as well.
Good. So sorry.
Don't worry. Councillor Owen?
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I've been on Google and looked at this. This house is further back. There's a gap between the two. This house we're talking about is so far back that that house is way in front, and I see they've got the extension as well. You're not going to stop overlooking. These people want this extension. They're not going to sit in there and look over the gardens. They're going to sit in there because they want the pleasure and the enjoyment of sitting in their conservatory. If I look out of my windows, I'm in a row of houses, I can see gardens both ways. But I don't stand at the window all day looking to see what my neighbours are doing. And well, only half of it. And I don't think these people will as well. Everybody's going to have a certain amount of overlooking. This one sits in without planning rules. The two, what is it, the 60-degree line and the 45-degree line have both been proved. I can't see what all the fuss is about. I'm quite happy to support this, as we did before.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Nobody else has indicated. If not, we have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against? 5-3. The application is approved.
Just say something, is that the end of it now, please? Is that the end of it? So we can
That's
go
the end of
ahead?
it. You
I
have
can
planning
get an
permission.
extension now, can I? And as I said, that I would work with the
No, sorry, can you not say anything?
Sorry, I don't have to be
Just to make it clear, you've got planning permission, you will get it sent to you. Yeah, it will be issued shortly.
Thank you very much.
Next application is in Stoneline Churches, and the number is 0460.
Thanks, Chairman. Members will recall the previous application was sought to vary condition by permission, the grant permission effectively for the construction of this building. The building is it's a double garage with a room over. That room over is laid out to be effectively self-contained. At the time the application was considered, condition was placed on it to require that effectively the accommodation will be used as incidental to the enjoyment of the dwelling or ancillary to the enjoyment of the dwelling. Since that time, the applicants embarked on advertising the room on such websites as Airbnb, etc., as a holiday let accommodation. A subsequent application to vary the condition to allow it to be continued to be used that was previously considered by this council and refused, as set out in the report. The application before committee tonight is an identical application. However, the applicant, through their agent, who I will speak, seeks to demonstrate the proposal will not impact on highway safety for the reasons they set out. You'll see in the report the Highway Authority have raised concerns about its use as a holiday accommodation, and I have expressed concerns about the impact on highway safety. They continue those concerns. Planning Committee refused the previous application on judging those concerns, and no doubt will consider the application afresh tonight. The only other issue was in respect of an internal roof light. Just go back to that. There was cause of concern for overlooking from the neighbouring property. That's actually been fitted with a restrictor and obscure glazing, such that there isn't any overlooking of the neighbouring property. So with that, Chairman, I'll let members consider the application following the agent's addressing committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Eamon. Two speakers. Mr. Sanderson from the Parish Council. Okay, number one.
Well, our objection was unanimous at our Parish Council meeting. I'll read it out and I'll make one or two ancillary points of my own. It says the proposed parking may be possible in theory, but the reality is that it is never adhered to, and if guests arrive in more than one vehicle, which is often the case, the owner and other occupants of Jasmine Cottage often park their own vehicles on Main Street to allow visitors access to park, causing an obstruction. This is particularly problematic given that Stoneline Churches is a rural farming settlement, and large farm vehicles, tractors and trailers, combines and double-decker school buses need clear access through Main Street. If cars are parked on both sides of the road, their access is blocked. Conditions were appended to the original permission, one of which was that the garage was to be ancillary to the main dwelling. The Parish Council are very concerned to know that this case demonstrates that conditions can be lifted with ease or ignored with impunity, as no enforcement action is forthcoming if they are ignored or contravened. In other words, they can't advertise it despite the fact that it was didn't have permission for that. The parish council considers this undermines the purpose of conditions placed on planning applications, which in turn sets a disturbing precedent. I was just going to draw the council members' attention to site layouts 1 and 2, which are in the papers, and its design shows that one is for 5, site layout 1 is for 5 vehicles being parked, and site layout 2, 6 vehicles. And I suppose the only word I could use to get cars in and out without moving vehicles 4 in site layout 1 or 5 is the word impossible, because as you can see that there's no way to the ancillary dwelling except by moving the cars that are already there. And in the conditions that the applicant has put about for the guests, there's nothing there about a curfew being back in time to alert the owners that we need to move cars. So inevitably there will be vehicles parked on the road. And on Monday night I was in the village and there was a large agricultural vehicle, and the road is, the location is on a bend in the road, so to get round, the vehicles have to swing out. For example, if the only largest vehicle I drive is a minibus, but you have to swing the minibus out to avoid clipping the curb on the rear wheels, and with an agricultural vehicle that would be even more the case. So we do think that it is detrimental to the local agriculture, if you like, to allow this to go ahead, because it will just cause obstructions on the road, and that's our principal objection, and this is the objection of your own highways department.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Mr. Hammond, who's the agent.
Good evening, Chair, councillors and officers. I'm Roy Hammond and I speak on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I note and fully support the officer's recommendation in his report. The applicant, Mrs. Peters, approached me following the previous refusal to review the case and see if there was a way forward. I advised Mrs. Peters at the time not to appeal on the basis that I felt a more robust application could be put forward, setting out the case for the proposal as I hopefully have done in my statement, and demonstrating the amount of parking available at the site. The proposal, at a small scale, attracts visitors to the area and makes a positive contribution to the rural economy. The applicant is proactive in making guests aware of local attractions and places to eat and drink, as evidenced in the reviews included in the application. The application for these reasons fully accords with the following national and local planning policies. So that includes the core planning principles set out in the NPPF, which support sustainable economic development, paragraph 28 of the NPPF in particular, which supports economic generating uses in the rural area, core strategy policy R2, which supports proposals that sustain and enhance the rural economy, and SAVE policy TM2 of the council's local plan, which supports tourist accommodation where it reuses an existing building and is within the existing confines of the village. The main issue in contention raised by the parish council and the local authority, the local highway authority, relates to the parking and harm to highway safety. Jasmine Cottage is occupied by Mrs. Peters and her son, who have a car each. Jasmine Cottage has 4 bedrooms and the guest accommodation is a single bedroom, and guests typically arrive in 1 car. Based on NCC's own parking standards recently published, a total of 5 parking spaces are required. I submitted 2 parking layouts demonstrating 2 alternatives, but if we turn to the layout that shows 5 spaces, clearly that meets the NCC's requirements. And I should just add that all the spaces are based on the County Council's latest dimensions, which are significantly increased. So I'd just like to highlight that the proposal in that respect fully accords with the County Council standards. Given the small-scale nature of the proposal, and that adequate parking is provided on site, I cannot agree that the proposal would result in harm to highway safety, and I'd urge officers to support members to support officer advice and approve the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Local member wishes to speak. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I fully endorse the Parish Council's views on this matter, and I recall speaking at the last hearing into this application, and it would seem that very little has changed since then, when members were swayed by the arguments of the Highways Authority. Now, we have arguments from the Highways Authority again on this, who don't pull any punches in saying that the local Highway Authority firmly rejects the arguments as put forward by the agents. These aren't slight objections being put forward by NCC's Highways Department. They're firmly against this application. And knowing Stowe well as I do, I know that although it's a rural area, it is a narrow lane that carries a significant amount of traffic for the nature of the road. There's a frequently visited dairy farm on that street, and that road is in fact used as a thoroughfare between the local hamlets and villages. I would simply remind members that they saw fit to listen to the Highways Department last time. Not enough has changed to sway the minds of the Highways Department, and they should follow through with their decision from the last time this came before them.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's slightly disingenuous to suggest the number of car parking spaces based on a few squares drawn on the plan. Looking at the layout, I mean, it's really wholly inadequate and impractical in parking terms. I realise how difficult it is, having just moved to a house where we have to tandem park just 2 cars, and we were forever in and out, parking on the road, leaving at odd times and having to shuffle things around. If there's a minimum of 3 cars here, and possibly 4, and if there's visitors, who knows, and looking at the pictures of Main Street, it is a significantly narrow road for the moniker of Main Street, I should say. I suggest that Highways have got it completely right, and I would like to propose that we refuse this on highway matters. I'd also like to say that I am quite appalled at the disregard to the planning conditions that we put on it by the applicant. And I think that they should read the planning application that they were granted and take note of the conditions that we put on it.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that proposal? Thank you, Councillor Organ. You wish to speak now?
Yeah, just, I totally echo that. There seems to be a trend about parking issues, and this is another one where I think we're just storing up problems for the local community, and it may well be feasible mathematically for the cars to park, but the reality of human nature is that the cars will end up on the road. So I think the condition is there for a reason, and I sustain and support my colleague in going against officers on this.
Thank you. Officers, you'd like to come back?
I just wanted to clarify the point about planning condition concerns. Whilst conditions were imposed when this application was approved, the fact that somebody could come forward and ask for a change of application or to relax those conditions, or that action isn't taken, planning is a permissive regime and there is nothing inherently wrong with that.
No, sorry, you misunderstood what I said. I don't mind them changing the condition, but they willfully ignored the original condition by advertising a room for let when the condition specifically said it was ancillary use to the main dwelling.
But there is also an argument that actually using a property for a holiday let is been, I believe, found in appeals that is a domestic type usage. So it's arguable that that is the same. Ancillary to the.
It's not separate. Again, through you, Chairman. Yeah, I understand the frustration in terms of breaching planning conditions, etc. But the reality is that it happens from time to time, and if people choose to do that either knowingly or in ignorance, the job of the planning authority is to. We're not a punitive system. You must go and look at the application on its planning.
We are doing that.
And you're perfectly entitled to come to you to weigh in the balance the concerns of the highway authority against the recommendations of officers, and that is where we are. Clearly, if the applicants choose to lodge an appeal against it, then undoubtedly the council will look to the highway authority to provide evidence to support its concerns. I mean, it's simply that, but the fact is that we approach any planning application, be it retrospective or not, applying planning merits.
So I fully appreciate that, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just saying I was appalled by that disregard.
Yeah, we understand what you mean, Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Evans.
Oh, sorry, Chairman. I must admit I was a bit surprised when I saw the two drawings of the 5 and the 6 cars. But if Highways wants to prove that they will get that amount of cars in there, they will. How they will get them out, I'm not sure, but they have proved that you can get 5 cars on that site. But the report from Hawkins and Harrison's in connection with this on the website says, in reality, the vehicles that are currently associated with Jasmine Cottage total a maximum of 2, meaning that there is ample parking on the site. I take it that's for Mrs. Peterson and her son. So, if somebody comes for a few days, there might be 1 or 2 cars, which will mean 4. That will still go on there. We don't have any proof that the cars that have been parked along the road at different times do actually belong to people that have come to visit Jasmine Cottage, or are they from other houses along the road? So we don't know. Now, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and follow officer's advice with this.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Any other comments? Councillor Swift.
Yes, can I, because our lawyer says something, ancillary means that you can have Airbnb and it's still ancillary. Is that the right understanding by law?
Yes, there have been cases that have suggested that you could have as an ancillary use an occasional let, so an Airbnb would be a classic example.
Can I just add to that, Chairman? Yeah, I mean, somebody with a house renting out a room or advertising room as B&B doesn't necessarily mean that requires planning permission. I won't say it's a grey area, but it depends. It's really dependent on the circumstances. So it's quite possible to make an argument to say that, yeah, a building at the bottom of the garden being rented out for holidays doesn't involve a material change use. But however, the facts in this case is that there is a condition. It was brought to the attention of the council. The council invited an application. An application has been invited, it has been submitted, and you're being asked to determine all its merits. What arguments are made in due course before an inspector is really a matter for the applicants and the council to respond to.
Thank you.
Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to say anything on this. I just heard some things about the car parking. I mean, that car parking map is, to me, it's just totally ridiculous. The highways are saying that there's going to be danger here. It's liable to danger with parking on the street, etc. But there's also danger, isn't there? That car number 1 that goes in there has got to get out, might have to get out behind 4 other cars. That means possibly reversing out, or even coming out forwards. Those 4 or 5 cars have got to go somewhere at that immediate point in time. So that car parking plan is totally ridiculous as a practical parking plan. It is totally ridiculous. You cannot dress that up as any sensible manner of parking whatsoever. You know, the original plan permission was about an ancillary building for that house, and not. And there were conditions, and that was the condition put on it, and that was for a reason. And I have to say, that is a narrow street, and you can see that it's an absolute mess, and it only takes 2 or 3 times to cause absolute mayhem and destruction in a small village in the middle of Northamptonshire. And I just think it's just mad. It's just mad to actually to go along with officers' advice.
Thank you, Councillor.
If I could just clarify, ultimately, whether this is 1 house of 4 bedrooms plus a 1-bedroom flat that is occasionally used for bed and breakfast, or whether it's a 5-bedroom collective dwelling, the issue is, does that make a difference in planning terms to the parking or whatever else? I mean, that's really what we're balancing, I think.
speaker come back that's a local councillor. If it's a quick one, yes.
Very quick. Just to note that on the occasional use as a bed and breakfast let, the frequency of reviews on Airbnb suggests that it is regularly let as a bed and breakfast.
Okay, thank you. Now, two more hands went up. Councillor Paul and Councillor Ritchie. You go first, Councillor
Just
Paul.
very briefly, we're talking about cars parking on the highway, and our officer very conveniently showed the image that is on the screen there. If any of those houses have children, as in most estates, instead of there being one house or one vehicle per house, there ends up being 3 and 4 vehicles per house. We end up with the same problem with people parking on the street. So I despair. Sorry, Chairman.
The only difficulty I see is this: the second one in goes on a walk and has a heart attack or something and gets took to hospital with the car keys in the pockets, and the others get out. But it's interesting. Right, Councillor Ritchie.
You know, in other circumstances, I could live with the sort of parking difficulty that this would bring up. I have a more general concern that perhaps we need to think about at some stage, and that is about sort of application creep. That it's a beautiful garage, it is beautiful accommodation, where it is situated, it is an absolutely fantastic view that it has got. I just feel that this was clearly built as, for holiday lets. And if it had been brought to us on that basis, we could have had a discussion about what was actually required. I just feel very, very uncomfortable about saying, well, look, it was ancillary to the, to the main cottage, and yes, now that there will be occasional lets. You don't build garages like that unless you have got an eye on the tourist market. And I just feel it's not an argument I can use in responding to this particular application, but it doesn't make me sympathetic to it, and I just feel there's an issue that comes up with other applications as well that that does worry me. I'm therefore concerned about the parking.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more comments? If not, we have a proposal that the application be refused for highway reasons, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. The application is refused.
Do we have reasons?
Highway reasons.
Just for clarification, those would be the same reasons as the previous application.
Yes.
They were highway reasons.
Yeah.
Well, I think there might be
Which were that the proposed use of the room above the garage as a holiday short-term let will attract additional vehicles to the site not associated with the residential use of Jasmine Cottage. Main Street is already subject to high levels of on-street parking due to the already narrow width of the road, just a single carriageway, which often makes the passage of opposing vehicles difficult. The additional vehicle route comings and goings created by the letting of the route will lead to additional on-street parking and exacerbate the existing difficulties of vehicle movement along Main Street, which in turn will compromise highway safety. It is considered the proposal to vary the condition and allow the use of the room as a holiday short-term let will be contrary to SAVE, Daventry District Council policy GM2B and GM2C.
Yes.
Right, you're happy with that then,
I
Councillor?
think so, yeah.
And the committee. Right, that application is refused, and that concludes the application.